right, today's episode, I've got my pen, I've got my notes and stuff, and I've got Ricky Boyett from the Army Corps of Engineers. You're the public affairs guy, so you're the guy who constantly gets attacked by people like me, correct? Is that your job title? Is that what you do?
I like to think of it as I'm the guy talking to the public more often than not.
Okay. This is a big deal for me. I live over in Holy Cross, and I have my business here. So obviously traffic is a kind of a big deal to me here. But you've got to kind of understand, I mean, do you, like when you get attacked on this stuff, do you kind of understand where people are coming from on that? Like as far as, the apprehension towards the canal in general with, the whole historical aspect of it.
No, absolutely. We fully understand, and that's one of the reasons why we get out and we talk to the public as much as we can. That's why I'm here today, because for every project we have, there's a person against it, a person for it. We don't really set meetings with, say, the navigation industry and other interest groups in it. We set meetings with the public because we want to hear from them. So no, we fully understand it, and they're not alone. A lot of people have apprehensions, not only to a project that impacts an industrial canal, but also something that is that long of construction in your backyard.
It's $1 billion, right?
It is $1 billion project. Is what we're estimating now. It could change as we get further in the study.
Into the thing. Okay. And then, and when you talk about that, like, it's a lot of like, you're dynamiting this thing.
Well, I mean, dynamite, I think, we'd be removing. We don't know how the bridge would be removed, and I think that's kind of the biggest question we're getting is how we're going to remove the bridge. Are you going to dynamite the bridge? Are you going to dynamite flood walls? That's still all to be determined. Right now, we're more at a conceptual phase than anything. And
so, so this is still like a super conceptual phase. And you've been talking about this project for a while now.
We had our first public meeting in 1960, and it's gone through iterations. So this is the first time that we've gone out with a shallow draft lock, and that's a smaller lock. It's going to have smaller vessels going through it. We're not looking at the big ships to be moving through this lock. So it is a little new.
Okay.
Probably more than anything, though, the process has changed.
Okay.
In the past, and maybe our biggest criticism was that it took us too long to come up with a plan, to do a study, to eliminate alternatives. And so
you've been talking about it since the 60s.
1960. That's exactly right. When you're looking at everything together.
Certainly a criticism.
Fair enough. And so we changed kind of how we do things, and then the change has now been how Congress wants us to do it, and that is what we call a 3x3x3. We're going to do a study in under 3 years, under $3 million, and we'll have all three levels of the Corps engaged at the same time.
Okay.
And converse that to the old process where it could take 10, 12, 15 years. You eliminate every possibility until you get to the final, only one that works.
Right.
The challenge is with this new process is that we are making decisions earlier in the evaluation. So we're having to make decisions before all the information is available. And that's why we went to the public when we did, is because we now are seeing one alternative starting to become the viable alternative.
Okay.
And we need to get out to the public and make sure we're not missing anything with evaluating that alternative, so that when we move forward to a design, going from concept to design, we are taking into account everything we can.
Why can't, and look, believe me, I hate that damn bridge. I think that's part of it too. Like, it's like, that's such a pain in the behind to get through. I think people already don't like it. But what, you know what I mean? So it's like, why do we need this new bridge? Like, where are these boats going? I mean, is it that heavily trafficked? Why do I need to put up with this for 20 years?
So with regard specifically to the bridge is technically part of the lock. It's operated by the port, and the city has a role in it, but it's operated by the port. But by changing the lock, you have to kind of change the bridge. They're tied together. But with regards to why is it all needed in general? Why do we need a new
Why
lock?
do we need this? Yeah.
So the Mississippi River and the GIWW, the Intercoastal, they're two of the top three busiest waterways in the country. So these are nationally economic critical waterways. And when you're looking at, we sit right there at that point, at the confluence of those two waterways, then you're having the highest traffic volume. The challenge for, say, the East Bank versus the West Bank is the West Bank has 2 locks. And so if something happens on that lock, you can just transfer traffic to the second lock.
Okay.
But in New Orleans, on the East Bank, there's only one option, only one lock. So all the traffic that's passing through South Louisiana from Texas to Pensacola and down the road
Are coming through there.
They have to go through.
So it's not that they're
lock.
it's not that they're like docking here or anything. They're just moving through. So why do they have to go through such a highly populated area? I mean, have we looked at possible, and I'm sleeping on, but like, talking about like the Violet Canal or even lower than that, like past Point LaHash, it's kind of like, why do we, instead of putting $1 billion here, man, you could fill it with dirt possibly and protect a lot of, like, not have a big waterway and then put a canal a little bit further down.
We did look at other options. We looked at Violet. We looked at going further upriver from it to see as long as we can connect to
even
the
upriver.
GIW. We did. We look at those, and we've been looking at those since we started looking at the study, at the options to go through to keep traffic moving along the GIWW. The challenge using Violet as an example.
And then GIWW is
the intercoastal.
Intercoastal, okay. It's the intercoastal.
And the challenge with, say, Violet, you're looking out at the Violet Canal, is you have to create a new canal when you're going through. While we have an existing canal that is built bigger than what we need it to be for.
Okay.
It's a deep draft canal. We're only looking at a shallow draft. With Violet Canal, I think the estimates, and we kind of looked at them initially when we were first looking at that deep draft canal, and then we went back to see if all conditions were the same. And for Violet, you're looking at around 9,000 acres of wetland impacts. So environmentally, that is not the
this
preferred
is
method
better.
to go. It is. The canal's there. You're not changing the waterways. What you would be
because,
changing
like,
is
I
location
mean,
of the lock.
with the these boats are not going down the Mississippi River Gulf Outlet. That's closed. They're going out Lake Bourne.
Correct.
They're going out that way. Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's, but it still doesn't, like, if we would fill this, I keep saying fill it with dirt.
Right.
If we fill it with dirt, I mean, does that give a little bit more flood protection for people? I mean, a storm surge protection instead of opening that up. But I mean, you're saying that feasibly, money-wise, it would cost a lot more than $1 billion to do it that way.
Financially, you're looking at the costs that go to building it, but we also have to consider the environment when we build a structure in any civil works project. We have to do an environmental impact statement. We have to understand the impacts.
So it would be more detrimental for more wetland loss to actually do it in Violet than to do it.
Absolutely. The canal here is already there, right? You're not digging through good wetland, setting a canal, setting flood walls, cutting off the hydraulic for an area. So, yeah, you're looking at over 9,000 acres, and that's our current estimates are that still stands.
So, I think one of the things that, like, people talk about all the time is like, so we're going to be possibly as me, you're moving traffic, possibly you're moving, like, to me that affects me, and then, like, so I'm going to be dealing with this for the next 20 years or whenever it starts, 20 years possibly. Is there any benefit at all? And you're talking, they're not even docking here. This is like an interstate boat system for boats, essentially. Is there any benefit at all to this community for having to put up with, possible a ton of inconveniences?
There are. You're looking at benefits, and we look at benefits for navigation structure. It's the economic benefits, and it's kind of confusing when we look at it. We can only look at it from the national level, right? It's the nation's taxes that go to this, so we have to look at what benefits the nation. And you're looking at about $170 million a year is what would gain from that. But you also have to look at the economy of South Louisiana and the economy of New Orleans particularly are tied to these waterways. So there are a lot of work. This is benefiting the ports. This is benefiting the commerce that travels through. This is benefiting the people who work on the river. So there are benefits. When you're looking at the community that is immediately adjacent to it, I do understand. What we're looking at is economic benefits for the whole, but we're only really asking for sacrifices from the adjacent communities. Yeah. I understand that. And I think Congress understands that too, and it's one of the rare projects that I've ever seen that by law has a community mitigation plan. We have to go to the communities and we have to work with them.
So it's kind of hard to sell me on this idea, like, hey, we're going to tear stuff up and it's going to be a long time, and and after 20 years, nothing really is going to happen.
No, I totally understand the community side on that, and I would say that the community is not alone in the city of New Orleans in that as well. You know, post Katrina, we've constructed $14.5 billion in hurricane risk reduction, and we are undertaking right now the SELA work in Uptown and in the Upper Ninth, and these are impactful too. For say SELA, I'll just use it as an example. Uptown. We took people's driveways away for 2 years plus, and they're not going to see the benefits as well as their neighbors will see the benefits of this project. But yeah, we still ask them to sacrifice. At the end of the day, all of the projects have much greater significant benefits than they do their detriments. But we do understand that it does impact those adjacent to it.
And of course, so, again, I have to be against it because it's a pain in the behind. But, I just do. But it does kind of like when I look at the bridge and I look at St. Claude and I'm like, this isn't ideal. And, the St. Claude Bridge was built almost 100 years ago from its little plaque on it, I believe. Sure. So these things are really old. And so by building a new locks and would that possibly mean that the bridges are going to be up less, or is it going to be up more because more traffic is going to come through?
Well, we're actually looking at that, and so there's two factors that are related to the age of both the bridge and the lock, and they're close to 100 years old. You see a lock, for example, if something breaks on it, we don't have parts. They don't make parts for it anymore, so we have to stop everything, fabricate new, and then you're building up traffic. The detour for the lock is 17 days, so they have to go up the river and around. Same thing with the bridge. These are old bridges. They're not as dependable as a new modern bridge would be. We are looking at, and we believe, and this is some of the studying that we still have to continue to look forward, and it really depends on how the bridge is and where the lock ultimately is placed. But by having a larger lock, we'll be able to put more in at a time, so we'll reduce the weight. Right now, you could put
two boats. So the bridge goes up. You got two boats going through, and then bridge goes down. And then instead of having the bridge going up, one boat go through, another boat go through, and then bridge goes down? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we'll get to see it going through. The lock is so small today that it's actually, instead of one boat going through, we have to break it in half. So each is going through multiple times to get all their.
So you can show me that.
Absolutely.
We can go down there and check it out.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go down there and check it out. Sure. I've never left this table before though. This is my like home building here.
It's
I don't
show
know.
And tell.
We're gonna take this. We're gonna leave. Okay, all right. Let's get paper cups and let's roll. Sounds good. All right, I'll see y'all there. All right, man. Look, we are out. We made it, huh?
We did make it. Yeah.
This is the first time I've stepped out of the market. So this is a big deal for me on this show. Like to see how this is even going to work. So
you've got a new thing now.
I've got a new thing.
Yeah,
I've got
absolutely.
a new thing. But I mean, for us to come out here, man, this is super cool. I think you're going to give me and hopefully the viewers a much bigger expanded knowledge of how this works. Like
sure,
we're going to see it, and that's going to be much better than just us sitting and talking about it, I feel like. So
hopefully I don't disappoint.
So what are we so you've got several boats in queue today, you said?
We do. Coming from the Mississippi River going towards Florida.
Okay.
We have 19, and coming from Florida going towards Texas, we have 9.
Okay.
So as you'll see throughout the day, you'll change as a boat comes through from the Mississippi River, and then we'll let one in from there. So it's just constant flux all the way through, all day long. We open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The only times that we are not looking to pass traffic through is when we have a bridge curfew, and that's set, say this morning, 6:30 to 8:30, and that's to allow commuters and traffic to go through.
So I try to do that when I'm on my way to the coffee shop. I try to make it through.
Hit those curfew times.
I try to hit those curfew times back and forth. I'm like, oh, okay, let me run right now. I gotta get back home. Yeah, I want to make sure it's down.
And it is. We have such a long wait generally. Right now, the average time for it is, say this vessel that's beside us, the average time to get through, they wait 24 hours today. Your average annual is 16 hours. So these have been waiting for a while to get through.
And I think one of the things that, you know, like when I've been talking, like doing my little research beforehand on this, is I think the number one thing like that that neighbors, and I know me, like when I'm biking across and in that, when you say there's a wait, I see there's a boat here, but I see no boats over there. I see no boats over here. But there's a queue, and y'all call each other or whatever and get the queue. So there's boats in, there's actually 19 boats in line, but we don't see that here.
Exactly. It's not safe to have everything stacked up right there at the lock as wait. So there are places along the Mississippi River where they have to pull over and stop, and then there are, same on the intercoastal, all the way out to like the surge barrier, you'll have boats waiting to go through. Okay. So it's not a traffic jam and visually bumper to bumper.
Right.
But they are waiting to get through up to 24 hours to get through.
This is the bottleneck for the whole.
This is the bottleneck for the entire system. You're standing next to the third busiest waterway in the country.
Really?
And
this is the third busiest waterway in the country.
Absolutely. Mississippi River, right outside on the other side of the bridge, is number one.
Is number one.
Ohio River is number two. This is number three.
Wow.
And so what you're seeing is basically it's the economic superhighway of the country.
Wow.
And you'll have, I want to say, some estimates are the economies of 20 states are tied to these two waterways.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that this is number 3 in the whole country.
It is. It's, you know, the Mississippi River has everything, right? It is the Mississippi River, and it carries all kinds of commodities and commerce. Your main driver here is the energy business. So between Florida and Texas and all the kind of commodities that come into those states in between, they're passing back and forth.
So that's what's on all these boats?
You name it, it's out there. Yeah, everything from your natural gas to your petrochemicals to grain. I think there is a frozen chicken plant that's out this way that they send theirs to Russia and there. So it is a avenue to the global economy, and literally.
So what's the advantage of actually using this canal instead of just going down the Mississippi River? Why can't we just pass this up altogether?
So our ships have to use the Mississippi River, but our barge traffic, as you're seeing behind the tows and the barges, they can't navigate open water.
Okay.
So if we were to send them out the Mississippi River, they would then have to go into the Gulf of Mexico and back around to get up to Gulfport or Pensacola.
Okay.
And it's not safe.
Okay.
So the GIWW was this concept that we could bring the waterway in. It's shielded on both sides from waves and the detriments of open water for these shallow draft boats, and they can safely move back and forth.
Okay, cool. So maybe we get a little bit closer to the bridge. All right. I just and then what we can do is when we do we talk about what the new.
Sure, we'll be on that end. Absolutely.
Because the new stuff's going to be on that end, huh?
The new stuff will be further down, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everything you see here, say if the plan that we're looking at now is the ultimate recommended plan and it moves forward, what you're seeing here would be removed.
So all this would be removed and it would be wider.
So, well,
because you're going to widen it up, huh, to get these bigger.
We're not widening the canal in
so this
the essence. Staying? So no, and that's why we're not really widening the canal. The lock itself is smaller than the canal, and you'll see it when we go on that side. The canal opens up. The lock
itself is smaller than the canal. The canal is bigger than the lock.
So we'll get a bypass channel along this side, but it's not outside the canal's range. So that's one of the kind of misconceptions. As we were looking in the deep draft lock that we were looking in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. That when there was a potential that we would have to widen the canal to get it through because ships are bigger and they need more to go through. We're looking at a shallow draft. We're looking at a small. It's actually depth-wise, it would be shallower than this lock here.
Okay, so shallower. So it's going to be shallower.
Right. So we don't have to deepen the canal because it's 30 plus feet now. We only need 22 to get through.
One of the things is like they keep throwing the toxins around. There's
sure.
There's toxins. Where are these toxins coming from? The boats themselves, or what is can you speak on that a little bit? Because that's a little bit of a point I don't truly understand.
Sure. This is an industrial canal, and it's been an industrial canal since the 20s, and so you've had different components. You know, you've had different industries based on the canal. You do have, unfortunately, sometimes you do have a barge that will leak or something like that, and it'll settle into, and over time, it's settled into the sediment below. When we were looking at a deep draft lock, this big lock, there was going to be a huge dredging project that had to go along with it. We had to bring it down to a deep draft level as well as the width, and we were going to have to take a lot of sediment. Now we did about $4.5 million study, and I'm looking at the contaminants or the material that is found in it, and it's not necessarily that all the contaminants are highly poisonous. The big factor is they're contaminants that you don't want to place in the ground. So when you remove it, you can't just place it through.
Okay.
When we dredge, if the sediment's good, we just release it. We'll put it back in the water. We'll take it down somewhere else and dispose of it. That was an option we couldn't do, and we had to find a plan to get rid of that material. And it was going to be this massive undertaking. But because we're going with the shallow draft lock, you don't have to pull as much dredge. We will have to dredge a little bit where the lock is going into.
But it's not. But since you're not deepening it, you don't necessarily have to worry about too much stuff.
What we're going to be able to pull out will be enough, or I guess the quantity that we're estimating that we would have to take out of the canal, you could place in a landfill.
Okay, and so you could put that, so that would be, and then you would move it to a landfill somewhere.
Absolutely, if they're certified to handle material. And we're doing that right now with the outfall canals at 17th Street in London, is that, they had creosote. Timbers is what people used to use when they would build pilings and docks.
Okay.
And so that creosote soaks into the sediment. When we're removing it, we can't just dig it up and some of it leach into the water. So you have to use this technique where it's kind of an enclosed bucket. And it pulls it up. Once you cap it off underwater, under the sediment, you bring it up, it can't drain out, you put it on a barge, and then you bring it to a certified landfill.
So what you were saying before, the canal itself here, it's bigger, it's wider over there than it is here.
Sure.
Visually.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you, so it would be a shallow draft canal, but at this point it's going to be a little bit wider, and that's why we need a new St. Claude Bridge?
Well, the bridge is really, and we'll get a little closer, you can see it's tied into the canal, or into the lock. As you're looking at the concrete embankment that runs along the wall of the lock, it's right there at the bridge. It ties in. So removing the lock necessitates removing the bridge as well. They're I guess, they're not independent of each other. They're dependent on construction. So that's why the bridge will have to be removed. But because we need to use this lock while we're constructing, and then we'll want traffic to be able to go through while we're demolishing, we will put a bypass channel on the other side. It's within the rights of way we have. We don't have to take anyone's property. We don't have to take anyone's homes.
To widen this area.
Exactly, and it'll be this stretch right along the canal, and then once this is completely removed, you'll have an even waterway all the way down.
Oh, okay, so you would have to build a separate little canal while you're removing this stuff.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and then...
Cool.
Fans. No. So, and one of the things, we'll get a little closer, you can kind of see how the
bridge is going to go up.
The bridge, right. And so what we do is once we're ready, the gates have opened, that means the water is equalized, and we are now at the height of the Mississippi River.
Okay.
But we also have to wait until traffic clears out, enough traffic is stopped so that we can raise the bridge, and then it goes through.
Because the water level and obviously the locks, and I'll say that for the water level in the Mississippi River is higher than the water level in the canal.
Almost always.
Almost always.
Right today we're about 8 foot difference.
Okay.
So the river is about 8 foot higher than the canal. During a flood season, it can be 15, 20 feet difference in the water. The only time that I think maybe you would see the water level of the canal being more than the water level of the river is if there's a local rain event, that if, say, the Mississippi River is extremely low and there's a massive rain event.
So how does is it just the natural length, and is it just the natural flow of the water that you use with valves and stuff to change it, or is it actually pumped through?
It's gravity fed.
It's gravity
fed. Built in the 20s, pumping capacities and factors were different. It's designed by the same gentleman who designed the Panama Canal.
Okay.
And what we do is we'll open this gate, the water will we'll block the gate on the other end, and the water from the Mississippi River will equalize to the canal, and then we'll close.
Because when you close, all right, so this boat's going to go through. The next boat that comes in, this water's higher than the water over there. So the boat's going to come into this lock area, and then the water is you're going to open a valve, and it's going to push water out the other way.
That's exactly it. We'll keep those gates closed. We'll let the boat come in. We'll shut the gates behind you, and then you have a contained chamber, and then we'll open the valves, and the water will naturally gravity flow out towards Lake Pontchartrain, and then it'll drop down into the chamber, and you'll be able to see the water go down about 9 feet, and then the vessel will be able to exit.
So, and this system is I mean, obviously it's super old, but one of the things that I get a kick out of when I'm riding my bike across this bridge here is that when the bridge it's 100 years old,
right?
But when that bridge comes down, man, it doesn't shake or anything. It rumble. I mean, it comes down like super smooth. So do y'all have so it's amazing the engineering that went into this thing 100 years ago.
Oh no, it's an engineering marvel. There's no doubt about it. What you're seeing, the bridge as well as the lock are essentially working antiques, both well beyond their design life. And it's really a testament to our guys here at the lock, as well as the guys at the port, to keep it going every day.
Keep it function. Yeah. So do you have too much of breakdowns on this system?
We do. Unfortunately, it is beyond its lifespan, its life design. It was built in the 20s, and it was anticipated to last into the 50s and 60s. It was in the 60s where we got when we see that it's time to get a new lock, something more efficient, to start looking at it. And so the challenge is, if something breaks, you can't buy parts for it anymore. So we have to fabricate, and what that means is it closes down the lock while we can build. And it can be anything from components of the gate to the gears within the system itself. So that's a challenge in its own right. But when you're taking into account that the detour around the lock when it's closed, and we're the only option, is a 17-mile detour up, or a 17-day detour upriver and around the Tennessee Tom Bigby, you're looking at major impacts. When we're closed, you're looking at impacts on the economy that exceed $1 million a day.
Okay, wow. I mean, see, this is why people think that it's not busy.
Sure.
Because when I'm looking at it, I don't see any.
Right. So the vessel's still getting out into the river, so we're going to let one come in. While this is all happening, there's no need for the bridge to be up, so they'll lower the bridge, and then we start the process all again. Now the water level is at the level that
at the river level.
Exactly. So it's better.
So at this point, it'd be better to bring in one. So you're bringing one from one side, one from the other side. In theory, to keep it, because you'd have to wait for the level. You got to let the levels change.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you can only put.
So it's more efficient to run one at a time, like a one-lane bridge that has two-way traffic.
It's a one-way bridge that has two lanes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so when that next boat comes in, this next boat will come into this area. The water level will go down, and that boat will head out that way. And then you wait for the next boat to come this way to go back to the river.
That's exactly it.
Okay. Cool.
So, and there's a little time, and that's part of it, is nobody sees the traffic, and then it's down for a little bit. But because it's safer to keep the vessels parked further away from the lock in this kind of high traffic zone with a lot of things going on, we still have to. I'm not going to say that barge traffic is the fastest thing in the world, so it takes a little time for them to get here as well.
Gotcha. I think we all really hate that damn bridge. I think that's pretty.
It's an
pretty
engineering marvel, though.
Oh, it is.
I like credit for that.
I think it is neat, man. When I'm biking and it comes down and it doesn't shake at all, it's neat. There's a Facebook page for the St. Claude Bridge where it curses people out,
yes.
which I think is great. There's also, I've got a T-shirt with the St. Claude Bridge on it that says "What's up?"
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that we're, we definitely we love to hate the St. Claude Bridge. So during with this proposal, the St. Claude Bridge is gone, and you're gonna replace it with a bigger, newer bridge. But we're not going higher. It's going to be the same kind of thing.
Yeah, right. So, as we're looking at it, they are connected. The St. Claude Bridge and the lock are connected. They're one and the same. So if we remove the lock, we have to remove the bridge, and what we would put in its place is a more modern bridge, a little more efficient. And
will it go up and down quicker, so we can move traffic quicker? Is that
it should. It should be a little faster. It's going to be the standard opening style instead of the cantilever that you see here. So it is a little faster, and then there are opportunities we have that we can evaluate as we move into that portion of design of laneage, bike lanes, pedestrian lanes, what it entails. We're not to that point yet.
Okay.
But what we do,
because I think a bike lane, if you put a bike lane in that sucker, I think people would be really stoked with it.
Well,
not stoked with it. Nobody.
I totally understand what you're saying.
I think a bike lane on St. Claude, man, that would throw the neighborhood a bone pretty nicely.
And that's something we'll look at, and that's as we move down and we start looking at the community mitigation plan and designs factors. We looked at the type of bridge that should be and what something like that would cost to give us a cost estimate on it, but we didn't sit down and design it yet. That's okay. Later, once we know that the tentatively selected plan we have now is going to be the recommended plan. That's when you get into it. But we do know that under all circumstances, you can't shut down traffic at this point. There's only so many avenues in and out of the 9th Ward and St. Bernard, and you can't close one off, especially for a duration of construction. So the plan that we're looking at now has construction of a temporary bridge, and it would go alongside of it and go through.
So the temporary bridge would go right here?
It would go right next to it as we're going through, is what we're estimating.
Okay.
As the most feasible outlet. We'll also look as we move further, maybe it's more feasible on the other side, but I believe that we're looking at homes would be the appropriate side.
And so that's a big one. Like, people are like, oh, you're going to relocate people. So, there's, and I'm looking at here, man, there's homes like almost right up against this thing.
They
Do you
are.
have any idea how many homes are going to be affected?
Well, so
you haven't designed it yet.
So the designs that are the kind of the preliminary that we were looking at and what it would take for a bridge to go along this area. No homes would have to be taken. We won't take anybody's property, but we are seeing that there would be homes very close to it. And that is an unnecessary burden to put on them. You have that traffic, that noise, everything right next to somebody's home. So we would be looking at, it would be voluntary, but we could temporarily provide, the funds, the needs for somebody to live somewhere else during construction. And then once construction is complete, they can come back home.
Okay, so you're talking about so that would just be a temporary move for someone, not a tearing down the house and buying their property.
Exactly.
At this point.
No, we would, at this point, no part of the plan includes the need to take anyone's property.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good to know, because I think that's one of the things that people are real nervous about. Like, hey, I rebuilt my house after Katrina, and now you're taking it. It's a valid concern, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely.
But y'all are mitigating that.
We would mitigate it. There's a benefit. We're going with a smaller lock, so it's not required. But even when we were looking at the deep draft, the overall focus was to avoid any eminent domain or anything along those lines.
So the
Stick
deep
within
draft
the right of way we
but
had.
now that you're doing
we don't know if the deep draft would have, but there was a greater potential for it. Here, all plans we have with the lock that is the proposed plan doesn't require it.
So when you start talking about, and I'm going to shift gears a little bit, when you start talking about, it's a deep draft right now.
It is.
And so if you're doing are boats that are using it now not going to be able to use it in the future because it's a deep draft?
Some. What we've seen is
most that are using it are shallow draft.
Exactly. The number of ship traffic that's gone through is greatly reduced. The Mr. Go is a deep draft channel, so ships could come up and then come around through it. That's not available to navigation anymore. There's one or two on the other side of the canal that do use it, but they're ships, but they're not what we consider like tanker-sized deep draft ships. So with the draft, they could come in light.
All right, cool. Excellent. So now we're waiting on that next boat to come around this way.
Right. As you can see, he's kind of heading our way. They'll close the gate. If you want to, probably a good time to move that way, and then as he comes in, he'll cross out that way. You'll be able to see the water drop in the canal. It takes, well, 8 feet. You're probably looking at 20 minutes for the water to drop.
So it takes 20 minutes for each one of those. Well, you
in
get
that
2 boats, one way, one the other way, 20 minutes. One way, one the other way, 20 minutes.
Yes, and that's it depends on the water level, right? Yeah, if we're looking at a 15-foot change in water level, then it's even greater. It will take longer to fill than it does to drain, naturally. So yeah, it's a.
So it takes longer to fill than it does to drain.
It is. It's all gravity fed. So we don't pump anything. It's basically just opening and closing specific valves. Well, when you have, in this case, and you'd be able to see it on the other side, when you have a water level that is so different and you're opening it, the valves, the water naturally wants to flow to the least resistance.
Right.
In this case, you're flowing into a chamber. So it's not a huge difference, but it does take longer to fill than to drain.
Yeah.
It's just water does what it wants to.
And then because when the neighborhood groups are like, oh, they're gonna dynamite it. You don't even necessarily know about
the removal process. No, we don't. You have to get in.
There's a lot of concrete here.
It's just a lot of concrete. It goes well down your good 30 feet into the ground. We'll have to break it, of course, to get it out. But the safe process is what we will go with. You do have, in addition to this being a lock, as you can kind of see, it's also a river levee-esque. So there are things that we never would gamble with, and one of those is public safety. And so we'll have to make sure that whatever method we use, the method will not in any way reduce the viability of the walls along here. Along
the canal?
Yeah.
Okay. Because this is so, and then I'll wait till we get down there to talk about it. But you would actually have the new locks are going to be over there, further
right
down. So you would be constructing those lots at the same time you're taking these out.
We would build the lock first.
Build that lock first.
Yeah. Once that lock is in operation, then we would remove this one, and that's where the bypass channel would come along too.
That you would need the bypass channel to get through here.
Exactly. So we would have a bypass channel so that as that lock is in operation, this one can be removed, but no impact to traffic.
Okay, because everything's, and so you'd have to build essentially a whole new levee over there, huh?
We'll build flood walls. Most likely is the factor that goes through. What you're doing is in a way you're kind of shifting what the most significant flood risk is for this area right here. On the other side of the lock, you have hurricane and storm surge risk reduction levees. On this side of the lock, you have Mississippi River levees, and they're built to address different things. Well, by moving the lock will be kind of that transition point. So what you would be taking is the Mississippi River levees and extending them into the canal, but also kind of reducing the space of surge. But more importantly, and you can't see from here very well, but more importantly, the flood walls that are along the canal now are secondary levels of risk reduction.
With these, okay.
They are. There are
because you've built
the surge barrier and Seabrook.
Right. So the surge barrier for storms out there would be closed first.
Absolutely.
Okay. You ready? You've been filming the whole time, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So you can kind of see the difference in elevation what we're working with today. You kind of a little higher, and then as it comes through, it'll open. You'll see it go through. You don't have it's not a cascade waterfall type. It's very controlled release.
Oh, so you're opening. You'll have to maybe come on this side to get that. So that's what you're trying to. You're trying to drain the water from here through here.
Exactly. And it'll come out on the side. You'll see some swirling. on the sides.
Is they're going to open it up a little bit more to get it through quicker, or no?
No, so the gate will stay shut until, so the gate is basically connected to maintain the water in there. So they are
because the
plugs.
And then the way it's not straight, it's angled that way. I guess the force of the water is pushing it closed essentially.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
I'm no engineer.
No, you're
But
exactly right. If you see on our, digress to a different topic, but if you see our sector gates and our surge barriers and that, our gates look like Trivial Pursuit pies. They're always shaped like pies and they're curved, and we put the two curves together so when it closes, the two curved ends hit, and it doesn't look like you'd think putting that flat edge would be your best, but those curves, what will happen is once it reaches the midpoint, the water itself pushes it and holds it together, so the water itself creates a glue that those can't come open without mechanical means.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so the surge barrier, we would close that off.
So you got the new surge barrier out by Mr. Go and that, since that's closed down. So that's out there. So if there's an imminent threat for a storm while this is going on with this temporary canal that you're talking about, at that point, once that's closed, these you said become secondary flood. Like, so in theory, that first one should block any storm surge coming toward the city.
You're exactly right. Following Katrina, we came back and we remediated, and you can kind of see the newer areas of the walls on that side in the Florida Avenue area where they're bigger, stronger walls. We did that immediately afterwards, and then in 2011 we had the surge barrier in Seabrook in place, and what that did was, because we're able to stop surge at a distance, surge barrier 12 miles outside the city, it made these stronger walls that we built secondary. They're internal water management now. During a storm, what you'll see is you'll still see the water rise in the canal, and it's because the city is able to then pump water out of the city and into the canal. We have a storage basin, so what water is in here is not in your streets. So they'll use it that way. So you'll still see water in the canal. I don't want to give you that impression, but it's not fighting surge.
It's not fighting surge. The water in the canal is storm water that has been pumped to the canals.
It's exactly right.
Okay.
And on this side of the lock, so the lock will still be here until that one's ready to go. On this side of the lock, what you'd have is Mississippi River levees.
Okay.
And so the entire Mississippi River in New Orleans is lined with levees or flood walls. And they average between 20 and 25 feet high. And that is kind of the project design flood. This is what we designed it not to overtop. And you'll carry those forward into, and they'll be, because of space you'll put Mississippi River flood walls in this area that are matching with the flood walls that are immediately along the
because when you
river.
So let me run by that again real quick. So you've got this canal. You're going to build a temporary canal next to this canal with flood walls that are Mississippi River grade level flood walls, so that the way this traffic can get through here while you're removing this gigantic structure.
Well, we'll build permanent flood walls. So we're not.
Okay, so you're going to build permanent flood walls. Those will be the new. That'll be the new flood walls. That'll be
your new risk reduction structural feature.
Okay, so that'll be the new ones over there, and then you'll build the canal going that way, and then you'll build the canal going that way, and then once this is gone, you'll have a wider canal. A wider area here.
Exactly. I mean, if you're looking, the canals have flood walls on both sides. So we would. As you can tell, they're smaller. They're
not
those
anything
on there.
they're not anything like the Mississippi River.
Exactly. So you'll have bigger, stronger. Now, a little different is that even when we built the IH&C following Katrina, and we went into the Industrial Canal, and we strengthened those flood walls. The new design will be a T-wall. That's our standard now, and so that's an even stronger flood wall design than what's on the canal now.
Okay, so these will be stronger flood walls than what's on the canal now.
Exactly, and they'll be Mississippi River, so they'll have a different elevation than on.
But now the Mississippi River, those levees are big old levees. So are these flood walls?
They're going to be 25 feet high. So they will be big flood walls.
They're going to be So it's not going to be like an earthen levee. It's going to be a big flood.
Most likely, we use flood walls when we don't have the space. So for a levee, as high as it is, it's much wider.
Properties.
Exactly. We can use a flood wall. We can get the same level of risk reduction. The thing to remember with the Mississippi River is even though we build to a 20 to 25 foot level, we control the water with the Bonnie Carey and the Morganza floodway. So it's what we call the project design flood, and that is maximum amount of water that we want it to get to. It's I guess the way to think of it is we allow as much water as we want against these levees, and then we open Bonnie Carey. When it starts to exceed what Bonnie Carey can divert off, then we open Morganza. And that correlates to about a 17 foot elevation. So we'll have 20 to 25 foot flood walls, but we're really not going to let the water get above 17.
Ever that. Okay,
Right.
That's cool. Let me look at my notes here to make sure. Let me see what else I want to for sure cover. The boat's going up at the same time. I wanted to talk about that, and we talked about the temporary bridge. So that's, I think the only thing I do want to get is the
Traffic.
The traffic. Yeah.
Sure.
So I think one of the things that people are really concerned about, and I know me when I'm traveling through here, if I see this bridge up, I'm going to try and beat it and go to that bridge. But if right now you're telling me that they take these boats apart and kind of pack them in here and move the water level, if you don't have to take them apart, are they much longer, and will they keep up the St. Claude Bridge and the Claiborne Bridge up at the same time, and then I can't beat it?
Right, no, I totally understand
Because I'm trying to, it's...
you can only call it delayed so long.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand that. So we're looking at that. We're looking at the mitigation, how you would operate the three together. I would say
You'd have to, then when you say the three, the locks, the St. Claude, and the Claiborne Bridge.
Exactly.
Because they all have to kind of work in tandem with each other.
They have to work in tandem, and there are three different entities running each one. You have Department of Transportation Development on Claiborne, Port for St. Claude, and then we have the lock. So before anything ever gets undertaken in using the lock, we have to get together and have a plan of option. But our initial kind of findings are it wouldn't have to be two bridges at the same time. And the reason why is because you have a greater distance between the St. Claude and the canal, and the lock.
And the locks, because the locks are going over here.
Exactly, they're heading this way. And what you would look at is St. Claude would open, the boat traffic would move through. We don't allow vessels to stack up against the lock when it's their turn. So they'll still be in the Mississippi River until it's their turn.
Today. Yeah.
As the vessel passes through, then the bridge will be able to close. We'll move it on into the lock it down. Once it's released in, if we need to open the bridge, we'll open the bridge.
Then that bridge can open.
Exactly.
So it'll be all right. Well, so that's a little bit less nerve-wracking, because I think a lot of people are concerned about. I mean, this is such a blockade just to a hospital or something, and I've seen it,
right.
Where a ambulance is sitting there with its lights on by the St. Claude Bridge, and I'm like, man, that sucks.
It is. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely. I can't say for sure. Now, I don't want to tell anybody absolutely not, because we don't have a plan yet.
Okay.
We have a draft. We have a concept of going through. You're looking at just give a comparison where those vessels are. You have that lock, so you have time. You have transition. We'll have to operate them together. The idea behind our approach to traffic is to cause the least impacts we can, and two bridges up at one time is a pretty significant impact. So the driver behind it is to not have traffic being impacted.
Not keeping traffic flowing over the canal
somewhere.
And through the canal.
Exactly.
You're looking at all of that.
Right, and if you're looking at these, and you'll kind of see it when it goes through, some vessels don't require lifting, some do. For the Claiborne, so that's an operation.
For Claiborne.
Always for St. Claude.
Always. Did you look at St. Claude possibly doing a taller bridge or a tunnel or something else besides that?
In time we did look at, the tunnels in South Louisiana are a challenge. Right. There's no bedrock or anything to cut through, so it is a Belle Chase tunnel in itself. You'll see it that it is a challenge to do. A high rise, if you kind of compare it to the high rise of the Mississippi River or at the Interstate 10 as it comes through,
it's tall.
You have to have such a long length. We would end up
running from Araby all the way to French Quarter.
And there's a chance of, because of the exits that's required and the on-ramps to get onto something that long, you'd probably looking at property.
You'd be taking property or something like that. Yeah. Gotcha. All right, so you want to maybe we'll show what's going on here, because this is going to be something. So you've got, so in this, I do see you've got there's another boat sitting on the other side of the bridge there.
They are. He's stacked up. What I think they're looking at is if two can go in at the same time. Occasionally, if you're only pushing one barge, you have enough room. I think that's what they're kind of matching up. It doesn't look like it. And then on that side, if you see that one's waiting, he's got 4, so 4 he may not need to break. If that's 6, he'll probably have to break it to get through, and that's an hour and a half.
Jesus.
So it's this constant slow, but new lock he'd go through with plenty of room.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the greatest. The challenge is, A, it's working antique. It breaks often. We shut it down last November, and we actually shut it down in August, and it took 120 days to get new gates in to place. So that was no traffic going through. We had
so
to.
they doing that diversion. You said
They had to do well. So in that case, because we knew we were going to put it closed for so long, we spent about $6 million and dredged a path further down the Mississippi River, but we did subject them to open water for a short period, and it's just not a safe option.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be looking at $5-6 million a year to keep that option going.
Oh, to constantly.
So we dredged it. We dredged it in August. We opened the lock back up in December, and by December it was already starting to fill in the sediment of the path we dredged out. It's just a lot of sediment out that way.
Oh yeah.
So
I guess
it's great for building land, but it does fill up in a hurry.
I guess one of the things, like y'all are not. How does that work with the Corps' liability for a flood? Obviously you don't want to flood the city. That's the idea.
No,
but
absolutely not. There's a lot of kind of, I guess, fears become myth, become legend, and so we've never. 1927, they did blow a levee in St. Bernard to release water off the Mississippi River, but we've never blown a levee or intentionally created a weak spot in an area so that it would flood one area to save another. That's the driver behind everything we do. We have to consider public safety, and if it's in the public's interest. And with regards to the immunity, it's something I can't really discuss. It is legislation, and as an agency, we don't have the capability of deciding what laws we adhere to or what laws apply to us. That's something that has to be handled in Congress and in the courts, I would guess. But there are factors. There are always reasons for.
Because and especially like the whole premise of the show here. Come talk to me about this. I don't think you could say, let's share a cup of coffee together, and we're gonna try and half-ass this as best we can. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't think I can't imagine that would ever be the case.
No, I mean, you look at it, and the thing with the Corps of Engineers is a lot of people see the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's understandable. You see us as other military, where you're somewhere for 3 years, you don't grow attached to the area, and then you move on. So you don't have a commitment to the area. But the Army Corps is civilian. We have 30,000 employees. Only about 500 are Army. The rest of us live and work where our building is located. We have people that their entire careers are spent at the Army Corps of Engineers. They're members of the communities. They have not only a professional job to do it right, but they have a personal interest. We had a third of our employees, their homes flooded in Katrina too. And so it's a commitment to see that not happen again. And we're dedicated. I live 2 blocks from a flood wall, and I wouldn't live there. I wouldn't select that area if I wasn't comfortable with it doing what it's supposed to do.
Cool. Would you live next to this?
We do. It's kind of interesting, and we had so many people come in after Katrina that we had to staff up. Well, these were career jobs for them, so they were not moving here to be here for a couple of years. They were moving.
People had to move. Yeah.
Exactly, and most of them, live in the areas where their flood walls are now. And
protect, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give the impression that you shouldn't always have a plan, and you shouldn't have flood insurance. You should.
Yeah.
It's just a factor of living in this area. There will always be something greater coming from a hurricane higher than what we have built to. No matter what we build to, there will always be something higher. So you always have to have that kind of personal responsibility to, you live in a high hurricane that's prone to huge storms.
Yeah.
But what you won't see is you won't see the breaching of Katrina. We hope it's a vacant city when there is a big storm. If it does overtop, we'll pump the water out. But don't put your personal and your family's personal safety behind those walls. Let it protect your property, and then you come back in.
You come back in. No, that's a good. That's good advice, whether or not you put a new canal lock in or not.
Absolutely, that's for the city as well. No area in New Orleans has any less levels of risk reduction than anywhere else. Everybody has the exact same when it comes to a hurricane system. If you're in the system, you have a 100-year. Whether you're in Ninth Ward, Lakeview, Uptown, the Marigny, on the East Bank, West Bank, you have the same level of risk reduction, but you still have the same level of risks. You could always have a greater storm greater than what it's designed to stop.
So when when Mr. Go was built in the 50s, and of course Mr. Go has been caught a lot of blame for a lot of stuff, and now that it's closed off, it seems as though we've kind of understand that that's the problem. When Mr. Go was built, it was built in the 50s, and it was built to a certain spec. And then what happened was, by the time it was finished, the boats had overgrown the size of the canal, and it wasn't used all that much as to what it was promised back in the day. So my question to you is that with this particular system, if you're looking at this whole project taking 20 years, how do we know what navigation and what transportation is going to look like in 20 years to build it, not to what we know today, but what's going to be in 20 years?
I think with deep draft, you do have to consider you're going to get bigger, and that's what Mr. Go was. Right now with the Panama Canal and you're being able to get deeper, we're looking at deepening the Mississippi River. Right now we keep it at the shallowest point in the ship channel is 45 feet, but we're looking at bringing it to 50 so that the river can continue to compete with the other countries and the other ports around the area. With shallow draft, it is so dependent on the locking system. The infrastructure is what it's dependent on doing. You can predict and build to a standard with the shallow draft with a little greater certainty, because if the traffic evolves to be beyond what that lock was, the locks that would have to be replaced in sheer numbers would be not feasible, impractical. So you can kind of see
so you're not really going after, whereas the Mr. Go, you were going after like river traffic.
Yes.
Where this project, I mean, with the shallow draft, you're going into it with the intention of it not being Panamax or whatever. This is barge traffic, and so it has to just match the rest of the barge traffic along the
Yeah, with the IHNC lock, the replacement plan, it's really bringing it into standard.
Okay.
With say the Mr. Go, what you were looking at is giving an alternate deep draft route, a straighter route into New Orleans. The idea was, instead of weaving up and down the Mississippi River, ships could use it. But the river is the river, and it proved to be the more efficient means of transportation, and navigation is going to go with efficiency.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. No, I think that answers that question. Like, how that in 20 years it will be up to standard, and it'll be used 100% in 20 years. It'll be good.
Exactly. We looked at, and we did in the study, we looked at different sizes, and there's multiple different sizes. We're not selecting or recommending the biggest option that we could put out here, because none of the other locks would be able to handle that traffic anyway. So you're not getting any benefits. So you literally, the plan that we saw, you saw benefits increase with size until we get to what we call the tentatively selected plan. and then any bigger than that, no more benefits. So no more benefits, but at greater cost. So we are selecting what would be the most beneficial to the nation.
You know, I mean, I travel these bridges so much. Like, coming here and looking at it has been super cool, man.
Very cool.
I really appreciate, and I really feel like you answered a lot of questions that we had, and I hope that kind of like, you know, there's some myths going around, but I think you cleared up most of that stuff.
Well, hopefully I did. Now I do want to say that we've got a long way to go, and there's a lot more information we need to collect. So, you know, for a while you'll still hear us say that we don't have that answer, and it's you know, we have to take, now that we have what we're looking at as a plan, we've got to take all the comments we received, and if that still remains the plan, then we'll go into and we'll get those answers.
Cool. So I'll put the comment links below here on the, and I'll put you so that they can still, people can still get in contact with y'all.
Absolutely.
And send comments and things. But it definitely seems like a major project, but it's you know, it's certainly interesting to see it here. So this has been super cool.
Absolutely. Well,
thank you
thanks
so
for
much.
coming out.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Cool.